What?
Buongiorno da Riccardo Schirru e benvenuti a Il Globo TV. Buongiorno e benvenuto a Il Globo TV al Primo Ministro Anthony Albanese.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. Mr. Albanese, you are past half of your mandate. How do you assess your experience and the experience of the government?
Well, it's a great privilege each and every day to be Australia's 31st Prime Minister. We made a number of commitments when we were elected in 2022, and what we've been doing is playing them out, making sure, firstly, that we have a strong economy. And if you look at the global challenge that was there with global inflation, I think we have come over that hump. Inflation is heading down, real wages are going up, and that means a lift in living standards. And on July the 1st, we will deliver a tax cut for every Australian taxpayer to deal with cost of living pressures which are there. So I think the fundamentals of the economy are in good shape going forward in the right direction. Unemployment is relatively low still at 4.1%. And I think last year we've seen productivity increase as well. So you need a strong economy so that it can then deliver the sort of support that we want to. Cheaper childcare, cheaper medicines, to deal with healthcare reform, to deal with education, to provide opportunities for our young people, and also dealing with the economic transformation that comes from the opportunities of dealing with climate change.
The ex-treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, the other day at the Australian Financial Review summit said that the economy was going well, so he was a vote in your favour, I suppose.
Indeed. But we have been through a difficult time globally in the economy. And we've dealt with it in a way that has been responsible. We delivered the first budget surplus in 15 years. And what that does is enable you to have the scope, the space, if you like, to be able to deliver on social policy, to provide support for people, which is our objective.
Next May will be another budget surplus?
Well, we will wait and see. We're a couple of months off. There's been a decrease in the prices we're receiving for our iron ore and some of our other exports of resources. But we are being very responsible. And that's why we made the difficult decision, but it was the right decision, to change the tax cuts so that it went to average workers were the real beneficiaries, that middle Australia, which is so important. And that has, at the same time, we want to make sure that we continue to provide funding for healthcare, provide funding for education, provide increased funding and support for childcare, deal with aged care as well, which is so important.
Well, talking about aged care, what are the problem, the skill migration is a necessity for the Italian community that has special needs, especially in relation to nursing home and so on. I believe you've been briefed by a provider like Coasit about the needs that there are in those type of areas for the Italian communities.
Oh, absolutely, and Coasit is an example of an organisation that provides extraordinary support for the Italian community. And one of the things that we know is that often people who have been migrants and had English as a second language, as they get older, they will go back to using the language of their birth, and they lose some of the capacity to communicate in English. So that is why it's particularly important that we have aged care facilities that provide support for the community, such as the Italian community, is so important. It's something we're very conscious of. So we have set about repairing the aged care system. We provided a 15% wage increase for aged care workers funded by the government at a cost of some $11 billion because we believe that our older Australians including those from the Italian Australian community, deserve dignity and respect in their later years. And that's a very important part of culture, of course, is respect for our elderly. And that's why we have prioritised those aged care reforms.
But will there be personnel, bilingual personnel that will come from Italy or from other country to Australia with a special avenue?
Yeah, well, we're changing the migration system. The migration system was broken, and we need to make sure that we get the right people in the right places. And one of those areas is to make sure that we attract nurses and other workers in aged care with the language capacity so they can look after our elderly Australians. That will be one of the priorities, is making sure we get the right skilled migration here, and that includes people, of course, with the language skills in Italian.
Talking about migration, Labour has been championing migration forever, but migration often has been the thorn of a Labour government. Not only the 149 people that have been released and we are all aware of, but it's also a matter of numbers. I mean...
That's right. Look, well, it was inevitable that after the pandemic, when the borders were closed, when the borders opened, you would have a spike in numbers, an increase in numbers, because, for example, students who hadn't been able to come here, whereas what would happen would be people would come and start their university degree, and then at the same time people would be graduating and leaving. What happened, of course, was a considerable increase because there were only people coming. People weren't leaving because they hadn't been able to come in 2021, 2022. So we saw an increase in migration. We want to get those numbers down, the overall numbers down. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we continue to attract the right migrants, the right people, so that we can fill the jobs, undertake the tasks, including in aged care, but in other areas as well. We are a country made up of the oldest continuous culture on earth, Aboriginal Australians, but since then people who've come here to make Australia their home and have contributed to our multicultural society. We want to make sure that we can continue to attract the right people. We do want to get the numbers down, and we will do that by fixing the way that the system works. When we came to office, there were over 1 million people had visa applications in the queue. Now that makes no sense that occurred, and so we're busy reforming the migration system.